Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Tonight on Houselights, we're jumping out of planes, saving Lori Petty in her nightie, and maybe, just maybe, learning to ride the endless wave of friendship. We're talking Kathryn Bigelow's Point Break, the 1991 high-speed concoction of surfing, parachuting, and Reaganing. I am your host, Tristan Riddell, and joining me, as always, is a man who has never ordered just one meatball sub in his life, John Mills, and the incredibly responsible FBI agent who empties an entire clip in the air near a populated area, Darren Moser. It's cops versus surfers, freedom versus order, Keanu versus a flying pit bull. This episode will hit you like a wave against a stunt surfer.
Bravo, bravo, bravo. Indeed, is two even enough for meatball subs? I say no. It all depends on the type of bread and how much cheese you put on it.
Gary Busey was so much fun in this movie, and I know that's a common phrase for most Gary Busey films, but he was especially fun in this one.
If there is anybody in the movie who I think completely understood the assignment and the fact that you had to walk a very fine line between earnestness and parody, it was Gary Busey. He totally got what they were doing in this movie and just had a blast. Absolutely.
Now, I really enjoyed him in this role. I had just watched Under Siege, as one does when they want to watch fine movies. And so seeing him, you know, he's a villain. He's a bad guy. He's an ass in that movie. And in this one, I'm like, oh, I get to enjoy you. You get to be a nice guy that I want to see do well. Because I think of like Predator 2. I think like he doesn't often get this kind of a role. Like, now, maybe if I thought 2 seconds about it, I'd think of a dozen other options, but I really enjoyed that aspect of his character this time.
Yeah, this was the first time that I watched this movie start to finish. Like I've seen several clips of this online. You know, I've watched big chunks of it while it was on TV, but never from start to finish in one go. And so I was really looking forward to this, to finally sitting down, because this is whether you like it or not, this movie is a classic. Whether you think it's good or not is immaterial. This is a classic film where it is constantly referenced in pop culture. It is parodied constantly. There's jokes about it constantly. There's even a parodied play, a live play, where they'll take an audience member, and that audience member plays Utah. And they read from cue cards.
Oh my gosh. The thing is, I would love to have a version of that where they're like, okay, what are you can play Gary Busey's character. I'd be like, my life has led to this moment. Please let me play Gary Busey's character. Pull me from the audience for that.
One time Gary Busey showed up to a performance and he hopped on and played Gary Busey. Like he played Papa's.
I love that.
Lori Petty did the same thing another night.
Oh, geez. But see, that is, I think, that speaks to it. And of course, you failed to mention that it inadvertently launched another very popular franchise, The Fast and the Furious. Because if you watch The Fast and the Furious after this, there are several signposts where you're like, somebody really watched Point Break a whole lot before they made this movie. There are very similar story beats in that movie.
I watched this with my wife, and when we got to the bank robbing scene and they're all dressed they have the ex-president's masks on, I turned to her and say, by the way, this is where the bank robbing trope of wearing a presidential mask came from. She's like, really? Because that's everywhere.
Yeah, I think that supposedly James Cameron did a lot of ghostwriting on the script, and according to at least one source, I mean, this could be just Cameron trying to be a credit hog, which, would be fitting. But supposedly he's the one that really brought the ex-president's concept together. And I'm like, I don't know how true it is because, hearsay, people taking credit over time and everything like that. But I'm like, it does seem like a very James Cameron type of thing to come up with something so cinematically pleasing that it just becomes a thing in cinema for all time after that.
And apparently they die in the order of the presidents leaving office, like those guys. And which is interesting because when Bodhi dies at the end, Reagan was the last one.
Hey, wait a minute. Did Bodhi die at the end?
Yes.
Did he? Do you think he really did?
Did he, though?
Did I see a body? Or did he find a way and he did that whole thing so that he could get to his underwater submarine and escape with all of the money? That could have happened.
While we're talking about James Cameron, apparently on the Terminator 2 director's commentary, he said that Bodhi did die at the end, and him and Kathryn Bigelow rewrote the original ending to be that way.
You know what? I didn't see a body. We are still open for Point Break 2 with Bodhi's son or something like that, like coming for revenge against Utah. But then the sudden reverse at the end as you find out that Bodhi's been alive the whole time, and it's father-son bonding time to come back after his old. There you go. I just wrote the sequel. You're welcome, everybody.
Apparently they were going to make a sequel. They wrote the script. It was going to come out in 93. They wrote the script. They were in pre-production, and for some reason it got scrapped. Don't know why. Darren, was this the first time you saw it, or had you seen it before? What do you know about this film?
Yeah, this was also my first time watching it all the way through. The only clips I had seen, though, are those from the wonderful movie Hot Fuzz, which references this movie all the time. So I knew about the, shooting the gun up in the air. I had no context as to why, that was going to happen. So this is one of those, like, you watch a pop culture movie and you get all those references that have been in movies and television. You're like, oh, okay. Not that Point Break is everywhere, but it was fun to see that come together. But no, I didn't know a lot about it. I knew it was a Keanu Reeves movie, but that was really all I knew of actors wise. Obviously the main actors pop up pretty quick in the very beginning, but yeah. And then again, not even knowing much at all. So I'm like, oh, surfing. Oh, we're jumping. Like everything was just a turn. I had no idea what to expect in this movie. And it just kept running. I mean, I did put together that he would be going towards the 50-year storm, and I saw that coming a mile away. But besides that, I just enjoyed the ride. It was really fun.
Well, let me ask you a question since this is your first time seeing it. I've never seen it on the big screen. Tristan, I know you haven't seen it on the big screen because this is your first time all the way through. I'll put it out to you, like Darren, Tristan, like this time while I'm watching it, I sat there and my entire vibe with it was, boy, I wish I could see this on the big screen. This really seems to me a movie that was directed for that in-theater experience where it's like, if you watch it on a TV, I think you're a little more critical of it than if you're in the movie theater surrounded by all of this. I mean, let's be honest, terrific photography of these insane situations. Like this movie's photographed pretty darn well, and it really seems like it's framed for the big screen, for, the in-theater experience.
I could see that. I really could. I mean, it was a 91 film, and so that's definitely what they had in mind. And, like home video was in its infancy, and it was, it's interesting that you say that because there's so many, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not scenes, but there's so many, not moments, but like there's so much spectacle. There's so much spectacle. Like you're going from moment to moment. You're going from the word is eluding me and it's really bothering me. And like you're going surfing and then you're going night surfing, which was totally in the night and not during the day, even though you could see the sun. And then then you went skydiving and then you went in a car chase and then you did on a foot chase. And then, like it was just like, and then there was shooting and then there was a bank robbery and then there was a fight and then there was a drug raid. And you're just like going from moment to moment to moment. And it was, I feel like if it was, I'm going to, like leak my rating a little bit, but if I was watching this on the big screen and I was enveloped by the screen, if I was close to it and, like it was within my peripheral and I got that sound and I got that sub and just to, like during the skydiving scene, everybody's kind of going around you and everything like that. I probably wouldn't have gotten as bored as I did watching this movie. And I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but there was so much going on and there were so many constant events that I was getting tired. And so I had to shut down a little bit. Does that make sense at all?
I could see that. I could see that where it's like the movie is so concerned with conveying the spectacle of the adrenaline junkie that you can't participate in it. And so you're not emotionally invested in what's going on, because let's be honest, these are not the most three-dimensional characters that have ever been written for the screen. And I think that that probably plays a part to it as well, right? These are all very much caricatures that are just, if anything, I think that what you're talking about speaks to that idea that you can throw that, you know what, it's like the, I'll draw a line to like Godzilla, which is about 7 years after this. You can throw as much production value and spectacle as you want at the screen, but if you don't care deeply about the characters, you are just done. You're just like, okay, whatever. Like, you're not wowed by it anymore. You're just sort of technically admiring it and saying, oh, wow, that's really well shot and well put together, instead of like being in the moment and enjoying it.
Yeah, I will say, I see what you're saying, Tristan. I didn't, maybe because I was watching for the first time, that I wasn't as bored as far as just going along for the ride. And maybe because I kind of took the posture of like, you're sitting back in your chair and you're just like, here we go. I'm not, oh, this better do it for me, or be my next favorite movie. But I will say, while I like plot wise the red herring of the drug bust and the other people, it did sacrifice time we could have been spending with our group of surfers and actually getting to know them more than the surface level. There was also one moment for me that was slightly confusing, as far as it was it was the moment where he shoots his gun and doesn't kill the bank robber, because he looks at him really closely and we see, his blue eyes. For some reason, even though I knew I was wrong, I kept thinking, oh, is that the girl that he's fallen in love with? Which doesn't make any sense, like body type and all that stuff. Like, but we never see them, without the masks. So for a moment I thought, oh, is he thinking that's her? Obviously it's not. It's one of the four, surfers. But it was enough to, I don't know, there could have been, maybe it was just the eyes to make that connection, but I don't know. There could have been other people that didn't quite nail that moment. I'm sure you guys got it right away when you first saw it.
Well, I want to go back to the thing you're talking about with the whole drug bust thing, right? That raid going wrong is, I think that that highlights where the film struggles a little bit. Is Bigelow is really, really a gifted technical director, I think. But what was puzzling to me about that scene, watching it this time, is it's a small house, so I should be able to have a sense of place the entire time I'm there. I should know where each room is. I should know where I'm going through. And it's so chaotically put together and shot that I still, to this day, if you wanted me to diagram where everybody was, I'm like, they're wherever they needed to be when it happened. And how did the naked girl wind up in two places suddenly? And wait, the girl in her underwear is still over there. And so, like, I was that whole thing, I was like, what is even, where is everybody?
Terrifying, by the way. The naked woman with the knife was freaking terrifying. That was really well done. Like, it could, I know what, I obviously, like with the woman in the thong at the door, and then like we see the woman in the shower, like, okay, yes, we get it. They're putting beautiful women's bodies in there to kind of raise your eyebrows. But when she comes out and she's naked and she's got the knife, you're not thinking like, oh, what a sexy woman. You're like, oh my God.
Well, I enjoyed the fact that they had her just beat the living tar out of Utah, because that was, like, it immediately imbued that sense of danger. But I still don't know where that bathroom was in the house. Like, I don't know how anybody got any. I was like, are there 3 doors in each room? Like, what is this, an octagonal house? Like, what's happening here? And I think that that speaks to, it's so concerned with throwing the spectacle together that it's moments like that where you see it stumble, and even, apply that out to where, Utah gets jumped at the shower with Anthony Kiedis and everybody, what's his name? Not Warhammer. What's his name? Warchild, and everybody is there. And it's still like, wait a minute, where is that shower? Because he's, Pappas is viewing him. He sees him go behind a bush. And then when he runs out to him, he's like on the other side of everything. And I'm like, what, where is everyone?
But more to what Darren was saying about, utilizing that time for the surfers. Darren, I completely agree with you, even though like I'm with you guys, like that scene was great. It was really entertaining. And when like Keanu was getting his face kind of pushed into the lawnmower, I was like, holy crap. Like that really brought me in. Like it was a really well done scene, but it did sacrifice time because, as we're mentioning the really, really famous scene where he's gonna shoot Bodhi and then decides not to. Like that's probably the scene that this movie is most widely known for. When we got to
easily,
like everybody knows that scene. I knew that scene. I've seen that scene, 50 times in my life without seeing the movie. Now that I've seen the movie and like watching the build up, I don't know if it's biased because it's been built up in my mind for the past 30 years or whatever, but it felt completely unearned. Keanu had no reason not to take him down. Zero reason. There was no connection between Utah and Bodhi. There was no emotional connection between the two of them. At no point previous to that scene was there ever a moment where they're like, you know what? Maybe we're more than just a cop and a robber. Maybe we're friends on a deep level. No. Like, yes, Bodhi saved Keanu's butt from getting the crap kicked out of him, but that's it. That is literally it.
Well, it's like a Wookiee life debt.
Wookiee. Well, I was going to say, that I think is what led to my confusion, where I thought it was the girl, because that was the only character I could think of that he would be like, oh, I can't kill her. I'm in love with her. Because I did not feel that kinship at that moment yet with Bodhi for him to be like, oh, I'm going to not try to shoot you in the leg or whatever. I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, I think that I agree that Keanu doesn't earn enough of a friendship with him by that point for me to say, oh, yeah, this is worth throwing away your entire rookie FBI career for this guy. Sure. And let him get away with all of this stuff. But I think that that's because of there's a sort of sense of this being like an old exploitation movie. Like it's almost like another very famous Patrick Swayze movie from the late 80s, Roadhouse, where when you watch it, you're like, what even is going on here? And it's not the best written movie, but if you're willing to let yourself go and go with it, you're like, oh, I understand all of the beats that are happening right now. And so you're willing to let it go and play along. And I think the movie here relies on that, so that it's one of those things where, if anything, I would give Bigelow credit for the fact that she sort of is acknowledging that this is not high art, that she's telling a story that is going to be comfortable with the spectacle being the thing and not trying to make it any deeper. And it says, why does Johnny Utah feel this way at this point? Well, I know he's supposed to by this point in the story. And so we're just going to go along with that. That sort of thing.
Yeah, it also, I'm not necessarily meaning this in a mean way, but the movie kind of had this is what the young kids want to see checklist vibe.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to put so much spectacle, as Tristan says, into this movie, but the plot, the drive for the movie didn't feel like, I want to tell this story of this rookie and these surfers and all this stuff. It was more like, yeah, that's a nice framing device for all these spectacle events. Sure. But
the thing is, and I think this can sort of be where some of us more movie snobbish or movie consumer types and everything, right? Like, this is something that an average moviegoer, and I'm not saying this in a pejorative sense or a dismissive sense at all, but somebody who's plunking down a couple of bucks to forget their troubles for a Saturday night and they want to see something, I think this is a director who's fully delivering what we would call a popcorn movie, a term that in and of itself now gets abused now reference movies that they're spending $750 million making. And oh my gosh, and look at all this. Oh, well, it's a popcorn movie. No. This is a popcorn movie. It's like, hey, I have a limited budget.
July of 91.
Yeah, it came out like
this was a summer movie.
Yeah, but it also came out. I want to say it was like a week or two after Terminator 2, and which is funny because Bigelow was married to Cameron at the time, and so yeah, July 3rd, 91 is when Terminator 2 came out, because it was July. I'm pretty sure it was July 4th weekend is when it came out. So it's either late June, early July, something like that. So yeah, no, July 91 is when Terminator 2 came out. So this would have come out
July 3rd. You got it.
Yeah, 1 or 2 weeks after that. And so this, though, is the type of movie in a non-Terminator 2 summer that would have done, I think, even better bank, because it would have been, hey, here's your spectacle summer movie. Like, this is a summer movie. And this is a director who's comfortable saying, this is a summer movie, guys. Let's just have a lot of fun. And I think that's probably why I wind up being, Tristan tipped his hand earlier. This is probably why I wind up being a little more generous with it this time than I have been in the past, is I sort of see it and I go, I get it. You don't want me to expect The Godfather right now. You want me to expect this. And I'm like, okay, yeah, if I was expecting this, I'm on board. I'm there for the ride. I get it.
Oh, and this movie, I mean, it wasn't Terminator 2 money, but it made $83 million on a $24 million budget. That's more than double your investment. Yeah. So that's not terrible.
Yeah. I mean, it did very respectably, stateside and worldwide. And, everybody refers to it as a cult movie, but I always get confused because this movie made enough money to be not a flop. And for me, a cult movie is always something that I always took as something that was a flop that found life on home video or something like that. So for instance, like the first
budget wise, but not commercial or not socially a flop.
But this sort of like disabuses me of that, where I'm like, oh, I must be defining cult movie wrong in my brain. Cult movie just means that it just gets a following. It doesn't matter what the box office was.
This is definitely one of those movies that found its following with home video. Like, even though it made its budget back and then some, like it made good money, it really made decent home video money. Like, I think it was like real fast. It made 20 million just in the US, just from home video rentals. And that was early on. And I think worldwide, it was even more than that. So I think it was enough to make people notice. And I think because of like like John, you talked about it earlier on about walking the line, like Gary Busey walked the line between parody and sincerity or something like that. I think it helps when the movie has an edge of stupidity to it. Like it has some frivolity to it where it's just like, oh, okay, this is the tone that we're going for. And when you can find an audience that can embrace that, ridiculousness, I think it really works, and it helps add to the cult following. Like, to me, I think the ultimate cult following movie is Rocky Horror Picture Show in my mind.
Of course, yeah.
Just
the gold
because
standard,
it's
easy.
Yeah, it's so campy, it's so big, but it didn't make that much money when it first came out. But there's midnight showings everywhere. People still celebrate it. We just celebrated, I think, the 50th anniversary, and
50th anniversary.
But like that's the kind of gold standard, like you said.
Well, and then The Room is the first one to really sort of like be the inheritor. That's the heir to the throne on that one. But here's a question, because like I'm praising the photography and stuff like that, especially pan and scan video. Like, okay, so it finds its cult following on video. Obviously, it does decent money, but in a pre-home video era, it becomes a forgotten a budget earner. My question is, I'm sitting here praising the photography. Does that just prove that cinematography isn't that important to people if this did so well in pan and scan? Or do you think that the way that everything is staged, it makes it one of those movies where it's better if you saw it on the big screen, but if you see it cropped, it still doesn't hurt because it's shot so well.
I will say it's less about how you watch a cult movie and more about who you watch it with. I think many of the cult movies that I was exposed to, I call them like camp movies, like the ones we would see on the giant CRT television cart in the meeting room or maybe a projector. So it's definitely not the best viewing experience, but you're surrounded by people who grew up on it or it's their favorite movie. And so that that's where the first time I saw Princess Bride was a camp movie. And like that, which obviously is a great movie in itself, but that experience, yeah, it's not a cinematic experience as so far as a movie theater, but if you're surrounded by people who really are passionate about a movie, they can elevate that experience.
Just as a side note, the cinematographer for this film also was the cinematographer for Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. He was also for not just She's Having a Baby, but Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And he worked on Men in Black. Like those are
Donald Peterman.
Yeah, that's
honestly
pretty wild.
When you said Voyage Home, and what was the other one that you said?
Well, there was Voyage Home. There was Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yep.
So if you put Point Break, Voyage Home, and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, you can see the visual language. I know that may sound crazy, but I think you can really see it. Like you're just like, oh, that's a Peterman film.
Yeah, I agree with you. There is something there. That's pretty wild. And I guess especially since those are all movies that, you know, people watched on video, and like maybe there's something to the fact that he shot it in such a way that pan and scan didn't kill it. That because the thing is, this is I'm trying to remember. Was this one 2-to-1, 1.6? What was the aspect ratio on this? Because I'm
pretty sure this was 1.39. I mean 2.39.
1.39. 2.39.
Yeah,
Really?
I'm pretty sure.
I could be wrong. Wow, was it? Okay. Well, either way, like maybe it's but maybe it's just some way that like he knows to keep everything center frame so that pan and scan wound up not hurting it in any way. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, okay. Think about it this way.
That's pretty wild, though.
I may be oversimplifying it.
He's worked on some amazing films.
But if you think about the set pieces, which was the term I was trying to think about earlier, if you think about the set pieces and you think about the surfing, like you're focused mainly on one surfer at a time. And so even though you have it in widescreen and you're taking in the huge tunnel, the huge wave, you're focusing on the surfer that you can pan and scan. When you're skydiving, you're mainly focusing on one skydiver at a time. But then when they get together, they're in a giant circle. So you can still focus on it in pan and scan. And same with the chase. You know, you're utilizing that Z-axis the most during the chase scene. And even even in the bank robbing scenes, there's no really wide vistas that you're looking at. It's really just clusters of information that's going on. And they spend a lot of time, like even in the car chases, it's close together and frenetic. So I think pan and scan, this is a movie, even though it has huge set pieces and a lot of adrenaline, I think the way that Peterman shot it lends itself to a 4:3 conversion.
Fascinating. Well, I mean, he's undeniable talent. You know, somebody who knew how to frame a film effectively, no doubt.
Well, and talking about shots for 1 second, because for the skydiving, it made me wonder. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but it made me wonder if they did the same technique that they did in Star Trek 2009, where they basically had them stand on mirrors and shot, not for every shot, obviously, but for pickup shots of like close-ups of the actors, where they had them stand on a mirror, shot down, which shoots up, and then, you know, blow wind in their face, and it gives the illusion that you're, you know, falling through the clear sky. I know there was a couple of shots where I'm like, this could have been done in that technique, but
what they did for the close-ups was they had Keanu and Swayze on a rig where it was like a gimbal pole, like it was a pole sticking out of the ground. They put their clothes on over this pole, over this rig, so that they could rotate them and spin them. And they were shooting at an upwards angle to shoot at the sky. And they had tons and tons of wind fans, you know, like blown at him and everything like that.
Okay.
And it's actually really, really noticeable for some, like during the first skydiving scene with Keanu, for like the first 2/3, maybe even 3/4 of the skydive, everybody has wide shots of skydiving and we see them floating around and everything like that. And then the only time we see Keanu is the close-ups of him on the rig. And it's very obviously spliced in where he's just like, yeah, way to go. Like he's like cheering from the sidelines because you're like, oh, okay, Keanu or his stunt double did not want to skydive that day. But apparently Patrick Swayze did 50 skydiving jumps for the film.
Yep.
And he's a huge, I should say he was a huge skydiver. Like he was obsessed with it.
Yeah,
and actually convinced Gary Busey to do it.
Yeah, I think that's why, like in the scene where, he jumps out at the end, like that's really him. Like he was like, yeah, sure, I got this. And the thing is, watching this is one of those movies that reminds me even more than Ghost, which I can't go back to. Complicated, but even more than Ghost, this is one of those movies that makes me wax nostalgic about what a talent Patrick Swayze was. He's so charismatic on screen. And I think that this movie is a complete dud without him. It is his energy. And when he's on screen and when he is with Keanu Reeves, there is something that lights up that happens. And it is that guy just had like a natural chemistry with everybody around him that made you want to like him, to spend time with him, to learn more about him. And, as I think back on his other roles that I've seen and stuff like that, it's like just a guy who he just brought, Bodhi, when you think of Bodhi, is a bank robbing ne'er-do-well, as the kids might say, he's got this weird philosophy on life, all this stuff, like everything about this guy screams, I wouldn't want to hang out with him. But Patrick Swayze, I would want to hang out with. And so when he's sitting there and he's like, yeah, man, you just got to get the adrenaline. And it's like, yeah, well, you charge in and you hold up people at gunpoint. That's a conflict of character that I can't quite resolve, but I resolve it for him because I'm like, okay, I could get somebody like wanting to be with him and wanting to, just hang with him and have a good time and to like go along with any crazy idea that he had.
Darren, how did you feel about the themes of freedom and identity in this film? Do you feel like it was secondary, third, fourth, because there's some people, like people who really, really like this film will tell you about, Bodhi's philosophy of chasing the edge or living without regret and, risk as an identity, authority versus one's own rebellion and everything like that. Did that land for you, or was it just like, sprinkles on a cupcake?
No, it was good. I think I'll echo what John was saying about, Bodhi is, look at the poster. It's him and Keanu. It's those two characters. Like, if their dynamic doesn't work, then the movie suffers. And his worldview with the chasing the edge, I guess it worked, but it was riding the edge. It was riding the line, because there were times during the movie where I'm like, why are they letting Utah into this world? Like there's no way. And then there's times they're like, oh, I buy it. Oh yeah, he was an old sports guy and they made that connection. Okay. And then it would go again like, oh yeah, but now they're like seeing him and that would be suspicious. Oh, but then, he's hanging out with the girl and he's learning to surf. And so it was just walking that tightrope the whole movie, not in a bad way, but so all that to say, like when that is not the viewpoint of your main character of Keanu, and he's being kind of inducted into that worldview, it's a harder sell than if your main character is the one pitching you that universe, because now Bodhi has to convince him and the audience. So I think that's like you said, people who are already right in that line, right in that high, are like, oh yeah, he's speaking to me. And everyone else is like, yeah, maybe you convinced Johnny Utah, who sounds like a video game character name, but I'm going to take a little more convincing.
I just because, Johnny Utah, the FBI, I have to believe now there's an old joke that FBI stands for famous but incompetent. I'm not saying that's my joke. I've heard it said, having grown up in the DC area, but no law enforcement agency on the face of the planet would take somebody who was a very famous college quarterback and be like, you're the one to go undercover. Nobody's going to know who you are. You're a freaking household name in some quarters. It's like, let's get Nick Saban and have him infiltrate the surfing duo. It's like, no, that's not going to work too well.
22 Jump Street-ish.
To be fair, that's why it worked. Because he was a famous quarterback.
Oh, I see. It's a double reverse. Okay, you'd never expect the world famous quarterback. I know.
Honestly, yeah. But that's like what got him in because, like in the surfer world with him being so green and, surfers are some of the worst people I've ever met on the planet. And to get into their
Houselights listeners, Tristan Riddell is speaking for himself during this segment. Neither Darren Moser nor John Mills are represented by the statements that are about to come out of Mr. Riddell's mouth.
Man, my brother-in-law's a surfer, Tristan. How dare you?
If surfers knew how to read, I'm sure I would get crazy emails from them.
They don't need to. This is a podcast, an audio medium, Tristan.
But in order to infiltrate, he had to have some sort of standing elsewhere outside of the surfer world. So I personally think it works. Did everything in this movie work? No, not at all. But I think that one thing, I don't know. I'm going to defend that one.
I think it speaks more to the fact that the movie is just having fun with it. And it's like, I don't think that there was any logical thought behind it necessarily. It was just like, and now if anything, the script feels like it was written by a child. And I mean that in the best possible way. This sounds like a story that my youngest would have written.
I've seen a James Cameron film before.
Yeah, but like it feels like a story that my kid would have written. And I'm rereading it. I was like, it's a lot of imagination here. I admire. Yeah, why wouldn't he be a high school? Oh, and they're bank robbers too. Oh, and they're skydivers. Of course they are. Why not? It's just everything.
And then they're skydivers, and then they jump out of the plane. But he doesn't know if his parachute is good, but it is. But now we're in Mexico, and then in Mexico.
Exactly.
Yes, I love that. And now we're in Mexico. Okay, so Darren. Okay, one thing that I love to repeat is something from Trey Parker and Matt Stone, where they said poor storytelling is, and this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. That's poor storytelling. Good storytelling is this happened, therefore this happened, therefore this happened, and because of that, this happened. Point Break is the epitome of, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then they're in Mexico.
Yes. I would say that is a fair criticism of the film. I don't think it's any mistake that this was not nominated for Best Original Screenplay. I think that is not an oversight by the Academy for this year in film. But I think that what's crazy about it is it really, I look at it as part of this retrospective. I didn't care for Blue Steel. I see Point Break as the director of Near Dark. This feels more like the sophomore effort to me. I see a connection between Near Dark and this, in the sense that like you have this sort of crazy outsider group. You have the decent guy who's caught up. You have the love interest that doesn't want to be part of the evil people and all of those sorts of things. And it's not a one-to-one, obviously, but I see it as that sort of thing. I can see a direct line for the director between Near Dark and Point Break. Unquestionably, this is the same director, but I think this is a director who between Near Dark and Point Break said, screw it, I'm going to have fun with it. I'm not going to be super earnest about it. And I think that the absolute epitome of that is that John C. McGinley, one of my favorite actors on the planet ever, absolutely
he's such a good
got
jackass.
The note. But the thing is, he seemed just to get the note between takes of, but could you do it even more unhinged? And then they just got him as far as it go. And usually you go that far and then the director says, now pull it back a little bit. I don't feel that anybody pulled anything back because he would just walk in and just start shouting. Like it was a parody character, but it works because Keanu is so low key in those scenes that you're like, somehow this weird alchemy happens. And that's where I got to give Bigelow credit because she's not doing anything other than I have these two extreme forces and I'm just going to play it in such a way that they wind up balancing each other out instead of having both of these people act like sane human beings that actually exist in the world. And I really admire that about the movie. I don't know. It worked for me this time while I was watching it.
Yeah, McGinley is definitely channeling the police chief from Last Action Hero vibes.
Yes, he is.
Almost a caricature.
I never get tired of that trope. I really don't. Or
and
it's
it's a trope for a reason.
You crashed 20 cars.
Yeah.
Give me your badge and your gun.
But you're too dang valuable. So here's your gun and your badge back.
Sure,
Go
you broke
catch the bad guys.
Sure, you broke 25 laws, and maybe there are 20 deaths that we can attribute to you. But you know what? I think you're going to get the job done. Yeah, it's
the mayor's chewing my ass out.
Yeah,
My ass is on the line for you.
But the thing is, that's what makes certain scenes so much fun, where this insanely tragic bank robbery has happened, but the capper to it is Gary Busey saying, you know what you never learned, and knocking his supervisor out and saying, respect for your elders. I'm like, that's so crazy. It's so insane. It's such an embrace of every awful trope we lived with in the 80s.
And then the other cops let him leave. Like,
right. Nobody says,
like, you just
I think
punched
that's against
out
the rules.
the
Right.
FBI director. But
Yeah, but that's why they
We're good.
allowed him to leave. Like, it's just like he
they were
was
afraid of him.
handcuffed.
You're right.
The director
we
said
were
you
going to
can't
stop
leave,
him, but he just punched him out.
it's
Right.
He
pecking
played the
order.
Uno reverse card. It trumps.
You know,
Yes.
Darren, tell me about Lori Petty. What did you think about Lori Petty's performance in this?
No, I mean, I like what John was saying about the similar elements to, what was it, Until Dawn? There's, the Dawns.
Near Dark.
Near Dark. It's Dawn and Dark for these movies. I got to keep them straight. But no.
I feel like you confused Until Dark or Near Dark and Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, probably.
And then
I probably did.
some of the third movie, I don't know.
But, I think her performance was great. She, she's the love interest. She's the and it's textbook of like, you didn't tell me the truth and now I hate you, but I actually love you. And then I think story wise, I think it went a little far with her being the hostage because it all worked out, but it practically didn't. Like, she should be dead. There's no real reason that she should be alive right now. Like,
I think that Lori Petty brings a very necessary energy to the role. I think she does very well with it. I think that before that whole ending thing, though, the kind of dysfunctional relationships that Hollywood modeled for us over time were very interesting because the minute, regardless of what the inciting sort of thing is,
I know what you're going to say.
The minute somebody fires a gun at me while I'm asleep, I'm going to kind of bail at that. I'm going to be like, you know what? I don't think we're going to resolve the personality issues that are underlying here. I think maybe, just maybe, we should call it off at this point. I feel there's something fundamental there.
Even within the world of Point Break, that was too far. Like, Keanu was very much way too forgiving of that moment. like he was the one who was trying to apologize and trying to explain himself. No, in that moment, that's when you go, no, Miss Petty, you are the one I'm kicking out. You were the one who should be apologizing, not me. I don't care how much I lied to you. You fired a pistol in my pillow while I was sleeping. We are done. You should be thankful I'm not filing charges against you.
Yeah, and never mind the fact that at the distance she was at, Thank God that gun didn't pull right a little bit, because that was a little close for the liking. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Lori Petty. I loved her in Tank Girl. I loved her in A League of Their Own, and I loved her in her performance in Voyager. And I was so happy to see her again in this. I feel like she gives this different kind of energy that's very unique to her. Like her voice is unique, her look is unique, and I just love her acting style. I really do, because it gives this raw vulnerability to every role that she's in. Like you just feel like as an actress, she puts everything out there. And I feel like this movie is no different.
I think I agree with you. I saw Tank Girl in the theater. I don't remember loving it.
It's crazy. It's unhinged. I'm not saying it's a good movie.
A comic book
it's fun
movie.
Yeah.
Like in a bad way.
Yeah, I think that it's, if I remember correctly, it was a lot like Ang Lee's Hulk, where I was like, these are images and it's a film. I'm not sure if it really makes sense.
Listen,
though.
I didn't say I liked Tank Girl. I said I liked Lori Petty in Tank Girl.
Fair enough.
You skipped over Free Willy? Oh, yeah, there you go.
I don't remember her in that.
I never saw Free Willy. That does not mean we are going to discuss the director of Free Willy as an excuse for me to see Free Willy. I'm willing to live with the L on that one at this point.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. You know, I think that the biggest accomplishment for Bigelow is that she gives Petty the space to be, I think, the one 3-dimensional character that exists for all of her flaws. I think if anything, that might be the biggest clue that there is a woman behind the camera, in that the main female character actually seems to have a presence on screen as opposed to just existing as a side note. And I think that probably has something to do with Bigelow, right? Because, you know, maybe there's an effort from her to give a little extra attention to a character that in a movie like this typically is nothing more than set dressing.
It's interesting because Bigelow, I feel like sometimes gets a lot of heat for having very masculine energy in her movies. And it's there. I mean, it's there. Like, it's true. That's not up for debate. She has a very masculine energy to her characters and to her story. And I feel like up until Zero Dark 30, we're getting primarily machismo on the screen. Even with Blue Steel, even though Jamie Lee was the protagonist, you still had protagonist confusion. You still had very male toxicity on the screen and machismo on the screen and everything like that. And Point Break is very much no different. But you're 100% right that even in the midst of that, even in this cloud, this fog of machismo, Lori Petty is able to shine, I think, because you have that female lens behind the lens. And like behind the camera, I think there's definitely some credence to that.
And I will say, for anybody that waxes nostalgic about 90s fashion, watching Point Break should completely disabuse you of that.
Okay, so speaking of, like, as we round third, John, I want you to answer this question as a part of your answer as to what rating you're giving this. And Darren, I'm giving you a break and I'm not going to have you go first with your rating. But John, you are what I would call an aficionado of 80s action films.
Thank you. That's one of the nicest things you've ever said to me.
With this coming out in 91,
mm-hmm.
What makes this movie different? What makes this action film different from what came before in the previous decade? And give us your rating in that answer.
I would say that very little, if anything, honestly. I think that probably the extreme sports that it highlights that's more 90s than 80s. If this came out in the 80s, it would have probably been like motorbike racing and some other stuff.
You were God dang it. You're
welcome.
So
And that's why you gave me the title of aficionado. I appreciate that. You recognize it. It's very
painfully right. It would have been a
Thank you.
BMX race. It would have been a dirt bike race. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I gotta give you the credit on that one. I can't even say any more. Please continue. I'm sorry I interrupted.
High point of my week, honestly. It's all downhill from here. And I'm going to say that I actually looked this up on Letterboxd at what I rated it the last time I watched it. I did not care for this movie the last time I watched it. Recognizing its, impact, all of that stuff, I kind of dragged it the last time I watched it. But I got to be honest, I don't know if I was just in a better mood when I watched it this time, but I was having fun the way I think Bigelow wanted me to have fun with this. And so my rating definitely was better. This is low art of the highest caliber. This is people showing up to work and saying, I am not trying to win an Oscar. I am just trying to make it so that, Johnny Blue Jeans is having a rough week at the factory and he's just got to unplug and he wants to have fun. And he's never going to get to do these things. He's never going to get to skydive. He's never going to get to surf. He's never going to get to live like a beach bum. He's never going to have beautiful girls around him. You know what? I'm going to throw it all in his face. And I'm going to do it in such a way that he's going to walk out and be like, oh, that was so cool. So I got to give this a solid 4 this time. This is a director who has grown so that by this entry, I think if you give this script to Bigelow at Near Dark, you get Near Dark. If you give this script to Bigelow after she has 2 films behind her, you get Point Break. And yes, it benefits from Swayze's energy, but I think that Swayze's been in some bad movies too, where with directors who didn't know what to do with him. And I think that this is not one of those movies. I think this is a director who knew who was on screen. And so that is a solid 4 from me for Point Break.
Darren, I want to hear why you think this is a cult classic wrapped in with your answer.
Yeah, I mean, besides the obviously definition I gave of cult classic being who you watch this movie with, and I will say in tangent watching it technically with you guys, or being able to have this discussion, that's part of that experience. But I think, yeah, it's in 91. You also don't have, there's no social media. There's no way to get the love of these extreme sports out there, besides movies or things like that. So it became a touchstone of people who, yeah, as John says, they're never going to go skydiving. They're not going to go surfing, but to watch an awesome movie of friends, they're never going to rob banks, but maybe they want it. No, but all that, yeah, I think that is the reason and why, as we're discussing this movie, it feels like set dressing between these set pieces of, because that is the point of the movie. And it's not horribly told, the in-between bits, but it definitely has that vibe. It is not a story first. It is a action set first. By a margin, by a thin margin. So I'm going to give this one a 3 overall. I think, she's improving. We're on an upward trajectory. I think I really resonate with what we said about this feels like the next chapter after Near Dark, as far as the forming and the groups of individuals. And I'm not quite sure where Strange Days is going to go, but I think she's only getting better. So that's going to be great. So three wipeouts from me.
Well, I'm giving it 3 flying pit bulls. I'm with you, Darren. I wanted to give this more. I wanted to give it like at least a 3.5. But as I was talking about it, there was just, I had a real hard time connecting with this film. And I think it's hard because it's so freaking 90s. I mean, we're talking Keanu, surfing, extreme sports, crazy Swayze. It's very much an encapsulation of its time. And so I give it full credit for what it is. I give it full credit for being a cult film with a cult following. I love that people love this. I love that it's been in pop culture. I think it deserves to be in pop culture. I think I will revisit this again. Like I will watch this film again. I will watch it. And I hope I will watch it with a buddy of mine, and like maybe we'll have a few drinks and eat a pizza and just kind of just like riff on it. I think it very much, this is a movie that I should have watched with a male buddy of mine. I should have had my hot fuzz moment with with Nick Frost and Peg and everything like that. I think I would have enjoyed it more. So I'm giving it a 3 just because I think for all the things that we like, I think there's a lot wrong technically. I think it's just set piece to set piece to set piece. I would have liked to have had a little bit more emotion and connective tissue. Will I watch the remake? No, but I will revisit this. And I'm excited to continue on with Bigelow's career, because I mean, like soon, like in a couple of movies, we're going to get an Oscar performance here. We're going to get an Oscar nominated and winning movie. And so, Darren, what are we doing next?
Well, next week, we're going forward a couple of years to 1995's Strange Days. Next on Houselights.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.